Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you. I had someone in my office, so had to shut off my camera for a minute.
Lots of things to juggle this time of day. I so appreciate the time that you make to join us. Are you good to go, Courtney?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, that's always fun. That's always fun. Kind of.
Sure.
Um,
All right. I know some of you on here. I'm Courtney Angelosante, and I am employed by the University of Maine, but I'm one of the Maine PBIS coordinators for the state. And I was asked to jump on today and talk a little bit about attendance and student motivation and engagement, which I am going to strive to do, but I'm going to do it in the context of the PBIS framework because it's just what I do. It's my love language. And so it might drift into other areas. But I know a couple of you, like I know Sharon very well and Jess, but it would be helpful for me if we could just spend a moment doing introductions because our group is so small. That would help me kind of steer conversation. So, Sue, would you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. I'm Sue Dion, and I'm a school leadership coach for DOE. And actually, I work with Danielle Schools. So I'm happy to
Great.
be here this afternoon. Thank you.
All right, great.
Spreading
Thanks.
the good word, Sue. Thank you.
Yeah, and Danielle?
Hi, I'm Danielle Burry, and I'm the District Assessment Coordinator at Maine Connections Academy. And I work with Sue through the School Improvement Grant, and we also had PD from Jess Anderson recently.
Okay, great. Thanks. And does everybody know Jess, or Jess, do you want to introduce yourself?
Think they all know who I am, but I'm Jess Anderson. I'm the director of Count Me In, so I'm working statewide to support schools with improving attendance.
Thanks. And Terry?
Hi there. I am Terry Gardner. I'm a social worker for the state police in Penobscot County. I am an Olympia Leader Advisor, and I say my retirement job is to go back to a school social work position. So I appreciate you allowing me to be on this.
Yeah, it's fabulous to have you here and your perspective too. So thank you for being. And then Sharon.
Hi there, I'm Sharon Haskell, and I'm the principal at Enfield Station School and in SAD 31.
All right. And Sarah, I don't want to skip you. Does everybody know who you are?
Well, I'll just really quickly introduce myself. I am Sarah Nelson, and I currently serve in the role as Student Engagement Specialist with the Maine Department of Education through the Office of School and Student Supports. So when you reach out to the Maine DOE looking for any attendance-related resources, I'm most probably the person you'll connect with. I stepped into this role having followed a career in the elementary classroom where I was a teacher for 32 years. And so I bring a really interesting perspective to this role. And one of the things I have loved is having the opportunity to provide a little bit of glue for the network that is out there. I love the fact that people are familiar with each other, and each of us brings a different perspective that I'm going to strongly advocate for you to share as we work through our time today. So with that, I am going to pass this over to Courtney, and thank you so much for joining us today. Again, one thing I did want to add was you said that you're going to do it through the frame, you're going to present your information through the framework of PBIS. And while many of our schools are PBIS schools, we understand that there are other schools that are not necessarily PBIS schools. In the past, when we had content experts speaking with us specifically about some of the bar related resources, we talk about this as a buffet of ideas and options. And again, I'm going to ask you to just listen. What are the things that would really impact your local community, and what are the needs that you have? So with that, Courtney, take it away.
All right. And I did want to just give a shout out to Jennifer. I noticed that her video is off, but Jennifer,
Yes.
if you're listening, welcome. I'm glad that you're here. And if you have the capacity to, oh, there, yeah, just jump in. And we just did a round of quickie introductions. Did you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I was eating, hence why the video was off.
That's great.
I'm just getting to lunch. So,
Thank you for joining us.
hi, I'm Jennifer Nickerson. I know some of you on the call, but I'm the Director of Curriculum, Pre-K through 12 for RSU 22, which is Hamden, Newburgh, Winterport, and Frankfort. And I'm also the District Facilitator for PBIS.
All right. Thank you. And so now I know more people on here than I don't know, but I am also making new friends. So I'm excited for today's conversation. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen with you. And I think this might be one of your slides or one of your graphics. And I really like it because I think it's important to talk about absenteeism as a spectrum. It's so dynamic that it's really not going to respond to a formula of, input this and then outcome that. It is dynamic, it can be nuanced, and you have to have that dynamic set of tools and skills for data analysis, data collection, understanding of the evidence base to support students coming to school, problem-solving barriers, really good classroom management, and have structures in place for advanced systems of support for kids that have those barriers, things that we need to overcome. But there's also things that we're talking about really universally, like school climate, your policies, your protocols, your data systems. So that makes this work pretty complex. And we're not going to, you're not going to come away from an hour here or even through the webinar series with, a grasp. It takes learning a little bit and practicing and executing and circling back. Because the root cause analysis or the root cause of attendance or chronic absenteeism is varied. It's complex, and depending on what is behind a student not showing up or not showing up regularly or coming in late, our response is going to be somewhat tailored. So what I'm going to do, or what I'm going to aim to do today, is to talk about some universals, some things that are helpful in setting up your school, your program, your classroom to encourage most of your students who can get to school to get there. So the degree to which attendance is within their locus of control, and the school can employ these strategies and be on the lookout for how is it impacting their practice. Now, with a group this size, though, we have an opportunity to leverage everyone's expertise, experience, curiosity. So I encourage you at any point, at any slide, at any turn in our conversation, for you to unmute and jump in. There is a raise your hand feature in Zoom, but we're small enough where I encourage you just to unmute and interrupt and jump in. You can use the chat too. And so when I am projecting, can't always monitor the chat. So if someone lets me know something's there,
I'll keep an eye on that for you, Courtney.
Perfect. But you can see, like, in this spectrum, we're talking about, things that might it might be kids coming to school late. It might be kids are getting there on time and they're there all day, but they're skipping classes. So it could be, kids are getting to school, but they're calling that parent or loved one to come pick them up early every day. So they're really not making it the full day. So there's a whole range of things that schools are tasked to responding to increase attendance, getting to school and staying at school. So just to be clear that we're talking about the same things, I've put up some definitions here of what we're talking about when we say things like average daily attendance, truancy, and a chronic absence. And so my experts on the panel here too, please give me a thumbs up if these look right for you, or if anybody is working off of a different definition, feel free to jump in and ask clarifying questions too. I mentioned that I'm bringing my background of PBIS into this presentation today. And it's not that I get paid, to say the term, the acronym PBIS. It's because of my years in the field doing the work. It provides a framework that I have found really helpful in organizing the work, so that when we're talking about database decision making, or we're talking about evidence-based practices and the system support to implement those practices, it gives a frame and a structure for that I find to be helpful. I want to, though, to Sarah's point at the start of today's conversation, if you don't implement PBIS, it's okay. You're probably on the same, you're on the same playing field. Leveraging evidence-based practices, caring about data and wanting to make data-based decision makings, wanting to support staff to implement sound practice. So I want to make that clarification that I bring into this work that framework, but it's okay if you don't. But I think that we're going to have more in common than we do in terms of working differently. A couple of resources that I wanted to just share is there is within PBIS, they publish these there are sort of guidance documents. They tend to be anywhere 5 to 10 pages long. They're practitioner written. They're easy to thumb through. They're easy to share, a 10-minute read, and let's talk about them. So they're handy, bulleted strategies, things to try, sometimes examples from the field. And there is a couple that I wanted to point to. So that if your school is got a spotlight on attendance as in that's like a top priority for you to see change in your data, this might be a great tool to share with staff or to thumb through to see if there's anything in here that maybe you hadn't thought of yet, or just to get that reassurance or affirmation that you're on the right track. So this one's called Improving Attendance and Reducing Chronic Absenteeism. And there's also another one. This one is aimed at the audience. It's directed for teachers. This is called Make It Radical: Ideas for Your Most Welcoming Classroom Ever. And in this one, this is through PBIS apps. They have a monthly newsletter that goes out called Teach by Design. And in this one, it talks about simple strategies. You read about it today, you use it tomorrow. It definitely includes, welcoming students at the door. It talks about fostering belonging, and some easy how to do it strategies. So that idea of radically welcoming students intentionally and not having it just be based on each teacher kind of bringing their own ideas, but giving some guidance points and allowing it to be intentional. In fact, a little bit later on, I'm going to share with you a way to structure classrooms from an intentional opening and an intentional closing as just another way to make sure that kids are getting this sense of connection and belonging. Now, this is a little bit of an extension of that multi-tiered framework that you might be accustomed to seeing with the triangle logic. You can see here on the bottom of this one from Attendance Works is this extra layer here, these foundational supports, which just promote these positive conditions for learning. And so, tier one, we're talking about things that we do for everyone, everywhere. It's for all staff, it's for all students, versus tier two, where we might have students who are missing school, versus kids who are crossing that threshold and more chronically absent. That's okay. So a couple of the things that Attendance Works also helps to carve out are these ideas of, what are some of the barriers that students or families could be experiencing. I can tell you that I was sitting with a team late last year where we were doing a data dive into attendance patterns. And this was a school in a neighborhood community where some kids rode the bus and some were walkers. And the walkers, those that would, if they lived within a certain distance of the school, there wasn't a busing option. And so the struggle here is if this is a family without transportation and we're talking about downpours or storms with narrowed roads and things like that, it acted as a significant barrier. And schools did tend to see increased absences on those days. And so thinking about those barriers and beginning to problem solve those, you can see we'll quickly go from this idea of problem solving at the N of one student at a time, to then problem solving systemic barriers.
That's so funny, Courtney. I will tell you, my good friend, Jess Anderson, I even put a post-it on my computer because she constantly goes back to think about the systems piece. Because if one of the things that I hear from people in the field is trying to fix one student at a time will make you crazy. But if there are some changes you can make in your systems piece, simple things like, not simple things, that's not true, I take that back, but looking at the barriers that you're talking about, or thinking about how this is impacting greater number of students, not just one student at a time. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, you can scan through any one of these columns and can begin to appreciate all of the different potential causes for students not coming to school. Again, it's what makes this work incredibly dynamic. You're not going to solve your problem by attending a webinar. This is really ongoing data analysis, action planning, and strengthening your systems across classroom, school-wide, district-wide. This is an all-in effort. And you're not going to get there just by adding in an acknowledgement system. Again, we can begin to create those climates where kids want to be there, they feel like they belong, and they feel like they're missed when they're not there. That's certainly an element of it, but I do think that this particular slide gets to the depth of the work that needs to be done, and it's going to be ongoing, and it's going to be all hands on deck. Those conditions for learning, again, that bottom layer of the triangle, that connection to chronic absence, we're talking about the physical and emotional health and safety. We're talking about belonging and connectedness and support, the extent of the academic challenge and the student engagement, and then the social and emotional competence. When we think about getting more specific here into acknowledgements and this idea of just being there, right? I'm working with a school. I had invited a school partner. I don't see him here, though. He was going to try to hop on. This idea of being there, their school has, in keeping with PBIS logic, they have core values. So they have be respectful, be kind, or be responsible, be respectful, and be here. That be here is communicating, we need you here, right? You belong here. When you're not here, you're missed. And so thinking about our kids at school, your students would probably say that they want to be acknowledged for their efforts. They want to feel like they can share their opinions openly, that they will be heard, they'll be valued and cared for as a member. And that these things that matter to them also matter to you. And so in this way, right, when we talk about acknowledgments, people are thinking about rewards. They might be thinking about tokens or tickets or certificates. It certainly can be part of it. And we know that those tangible items are reminders for the adults to pass along those messages to students. But it can be that important moment where you look someone in the eye and you say, I'm so glad you're here. So I don't want to undervalue those moments. And I think you all know what it feels like, because we can extend this to what does this feel like for us? Just, wanting to show up to work. When we look at what would make you feel like you belong at the company where you work, right? In a survey here, you can see some of the strongest reasons that people gave, or some examples that people gave that made them feel like they belong in their company or in their institution where they're employed. Right at the top, it's being recognized for my accomplishments. And so for each of you, right, I'm sure that you've had a moment or three where you felt like you were acknowledged for work that you've done. And it might not be that you won Employee of the Month. It might be that time someone wrote on a Post-it note and stuck it in your mailbox. Or, finished up a conversation saying something like, in that meeting today, I really appreciated how you said X, Y, or Z. So this isn't just about kids. I know that across schools that I'm familiar with, that I'm in and out of each week and each month, one of the things that I hear about is the challenge with substitutes. And staff are out, right? Staff are out. And sometimes they're just out because they just need a minute. They need a minute, or the stress is getting to them. They're checking out in some way to refuel or fill up their empty buckets. So when we think about what we're doing here for students, I think it's worth mentioning, how are we doing this for staff too? Anybody have any good strategies that they're using to provide a meaningful staff acknowledgement?
I do not work in a school anymore, sadly, someday. But anyway, I just wanted to say that I spent about 20 years in child protective. And so when I went to the school, one of the things that I really was excited about doing was being, there are two sides to this elementary school I was at. So the little kids came in one side and the bigger kids in the other. But anyway, just being on the smaller side, the younger kids in the morning when they would come into school and eat breakfast was just amazing, because as you all know better than I do, you don't know what kiddos have been through either at night or in the morning before they get to school, just how horrible or how great that could be or may have been. So just being that one constant person that, I think I'm a pretty positive person. So just always being happy to see them. And if you can just be that one constant person every school day for a kid, makes such a huge difference. I can't tell you how many kids that I've interviewed and said, how much school staff helped them and meant to them. So everything you're saying is spot on. And another thing is a lot of times kids want to come to school, but their parents either could be a host of reasons, substance use disorder, just depression, anything. But to just be blunt, and again, you all know this better than I do, there are some people that don't put importance on education, and that trickles down. Luckily, when I was growing up, there were 6 of us kids, and it wasn't an option. Nobody ever thought about saying, "I'm not going to school," or not waking up. It just never crossed anyone's mind to not go to school. So anyway, just keep doing what you're doing because they appreciate it.
Thanks, Terry.
You're welcome.
Courtney,
Courtney,
one
I
thing
have
I was going to talk about is our RSU 22 district initiative called Leaders Among Us. And so at each building every month, we have certificates in each building, and we have our core values on them. And so at each building, a staff nominate other staff for demonstrating those core values, and they have like a little 1 or 2 sentences about it. And every month, those get turned into the principal, and there's a drawing for some prize, which have all been very generously donated by community partners. For example, last month, Hamden Floral donated a really beautiful bouquet to that month's winners. We've also had, Pat's Pizza. We've had different places give an Amazon card or whatever. And so we've partnered with businesses to be able to support that. And so there are 6 winners because we have 6 buildings each month. They also get put on our social media pages, and the businesses get a little shout out and a tag. So it's kind of a buy-in and incentive for them. And then each year we choose a pre-K to 5 leader of the year and a 6 through 12 leader of the year, and they get a plaque that they keep in their school for the year. The next year we do it in August, so that year they get it, and their name goes on the plaque on a little thing. But this will be our 4th year doing that. So,
And Jennifer, what was the name of that campaign?
Leaders Among Us.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
And you can nominate kitchen staff, you can nominate ed techs, you can nominate anybody. So it's not just teachers. So,
Right. That's great. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I had facilitated. That's a great example of a like a formalized staff acknowledgement system, and I recommend having those. In fact, what we know about Fortune 500 companies is they tend to have these bona fide acknowledgement systems where it sets up that structure for looking for the positive. That's it. And because we all want to be positive, but I mean, we get bogged down with dealing with the fire of the day and, then racing home, what are we going to have for dinner? And we just get busy. So the acknowledgement systems, it's really less about the plaque, I'm assuming, although I bet that's a fun element of it, but it's about that structure for protecting the time to say you've been noticed, you've been nominated. We want to give you a shout out in the busyness of our work lives, to say that the work that you're doing matters.
and it's really great that it's like peer to peer, right? It's not just the administrator like always acknowledging. It's really all the staff, right? Noticing like, oh my gosh, that was really awesome. Thanks for being compassionate, blah, 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 right? Those are
Right.
the nice things that it's not a top down.
Yeah. I have sat with some teams recently that are going through it. They have some heavy things that they're working through, whether it's related to supporting a family or it's a loss in their community, right? There's just a variety of reasons that can get us. And so working with one of these teams, they talked about their frustration with students just sort of quitting, right? Like a task is difficult, and so they're just giving up and they're not persevering. So we did an exercise where we talked about resilience and a time that they can remember when they were hit with a hardship or a barrier and how they persevered or showed grit or resilience. And so they had to then like take this task and go through it themselves. And then they shared, not forced, but they had this option to share. And the things that our staff are going through, whether it's, it's the sandwich generation. I'm caring for my mom, and I've got kids that are, they're feeling it on both ends. The things that aren't really work related, but that they are carrying with them into the day. And so this team sort of rallied at the end, said, well, we're here and we all really care about this work, so we're winning, right? And so those kinds of things that send this message of we're in it together. And as a team, we're gonna keep at it. To me, can be just as powerful as the formal systems. And I'm not sure that one is any more powerful than the other. And so you could have your formal systems, but don't forget about those, the noticing that happens every day, where whether you've got someone that, lost their cat that that has been their partner for 17 years, and they're really feeling it, and how we show up for them too. So it's an all-in kind of experience. And when we can bring, that humanity back, and put it in the forefront, it helps everybody.
Courtney, I like how you are explicitly speaking about the fact that attendance in the state of Maine really is not just a student challenge, and how it really becomes a community effort. And the communities that are able to support each other the most see the greatest success across the board. So thank you for bringing that kind of, we don't talk a lot about that, but that's a huge piece of the challenge that we're currently facing. And we
Yeah.
have seen some great successes, but it's a huge challenge.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in a school today, and I'm coming to you live right from the school. There is a family here where this single mom just had her fifth boy. Just had their fifth boy. And I just want to send her all of the love and a box of chocolates too. Um, but she is we've got an attendance issue, believe it or not, because she is picking up early to avoid the long wait in the car in the bus circle, right? So it's just by listening to this family and caring, sending those congratulatory messages, and those building those connections, that we're understanding that what the barrier is when you have a car full of toddlers and a newborn not wanting to sit in the bus circle for sometimes a half an hour. So like we're thinking about how can we support this family, right? It's going to make an impact on their.
And that also is really shifting it so that you can say, instead of being upset with the situation, shifting to say, what is this telling me, and how can how can I support that? That's a
Yeah.
huge shift for many people. And it's easy to say it, but when, as you were talking about, when you are in the fire and it's like, oh, please send Tommy to the office, you're like, ah. So I appreciate this school is able to see why the mom is doing it, and maybe kind of do some brainstorming to
Or
figure that
partner
out.
with her, right? Let's figure something out here. Right. Yeah. Okay. So there are, though, then, as we talk about, formal, informal, there are some things that we can do at the class level, at the school level, sometimes at grade level, where, some schools are doing some pretty fun things. They can be novel, like a monthly challenge, or, kind of rotate the prizes. But some examples here are, if you've got perfect attendance, there's a special library time you're invited to. You can play hot potato, you get a certificate that you can take home, and sometimes that's paired with a light snack. For classrooms, you might have a way for students to collect data on their own attendance from, being on time, running a little late, or if you were not there and we missed you. For another example of a PBIS where there are some formal acknowledgement systems, you might have heard of like the Golden Awards, where you get the golden dustpan for the classroom that's the cleanest, or you get the golden lunch tray for the lunch table that's was responsible with cleanups, things like that. There can also be an attendance trophy given weekly to the class with the highest attendance percentage. Um, and those can vary. You don't have to lock in and replicate exactly what, these ideas, but the idea is you may see behavior change in the direction of where you're putting your attention, of what you're saying is valuable. So if you say attendance is valuable, then you tend to see behavior change in that direction. People are going to pick up on what you're talking about, what you're emphasizing, what you're communicating, what you're celebrating, and you can organize that delivery of the attention to a class, to a wing, to a grade level, to particular students too, that we might be having some individual plans for increasing attendance. Or maybe we're not looking for perfection, we're looking for improvement, right? Kind of setting a goal and moving from this to that. So think about what types of acknowledgements you're already doing, and is there an extension of that system that you can add for attendance? And when we talk about attendance, I have found it helpful to be kind of explicit around what that means. Is that 2 feet through the door, right? Is it just showing up for a day of school? Does it matter if you're late? Be clear on what that means. Again, the person that I had invited today that's running an attendance campaign that I'm pretty excited about, their attendance is looking okay, but they've got a number of students where their school day, I think, starts at 7:45 and they're rolling in at 8:10. Right? It's enough of a percentage of students where they feel like the response is better positioned school-wide rather than student by student. So they're running a short campaign where it's 2 feet through the door, and they're looking at kids are earning these little bracelets that's like an attendance bracelet that they can earn if they're showing up in that way. Of course, this is going to look different depending on the grade level, but you can do this for older students. You can have a blitz, right? The first 100 kids through the door get a token for the vending machine, or get a ticket to a free game, something that might matter to them for showing up.
In the chat, we're seeing some great ideas popping up. And I appreciate that sometimes we know we want to make change, but we don't really know where to look. And we have 2 schools that have been highlighted, Miller Elementary School and Guy E. Rowe. Miller Elementary is in Waldoboro, and Guy E. Rowe, I'm not familiar with that
Norway.
school.
It's in Norway.
It's in Norway, yeah.
Yeah.
But both of those schools have some great systems in place. So one of the things I would strongly advocate for is reach out to other schools and say, hey, I hear you guys are doing some great things. Again, that really is the recognition. It's like, oh my gosh, somebody was talking about the great things that we're doing. But reach out and say, hey, would you mind sharing a couple of your thoughts? Courtney, would you be comfortable sharing the attendance campaign, or what school that is equated with?
Yeah, it's Ella P. Burr in RSU 67. It's their elementary school. It's pre-K through grade 3, grade 2, grade 3, grade 3. And yeah, so they're trying to address attendance on a couple of fronts. One is getting attendance close to that 95% mark, but they're also trying to get kids there on time. so we're working on a little bit of a checklist with families to help them prepare. I'm going to share that with you too, to prepare their families, to prepare their children, and some things that they can think of to do maybe the night before. And just again, it's like, thank you for getting your children to school, right? The weather is yuck, the roads are mush, and and you're getting them here. And thank you. Here's our goal.
I'm going to throw out that if you are looking for resources to share with families, on the MEAC web page, we have resources that can easily be printed out that say exactly that. Maybe you could pack your backpacks the night before, or have a consistent space where you put your backpack each
Oh,
night.
I'm going to share that with you too.
Oh, you've got that? All right, honey. You great minds think alike.
Yeah, well, I think you'll see it. You'll recognize it here.
Good.
But I like a couple of things here that I wanted to point out. A placard. If you've got a classroom in your school that has a perfect attendance, like put some banners outside that doorway, right? So that you can't help but miss it when you walk by. Something that might, an administrator walking by could pop in and says, "What? Everybody's here?" Like high fives all around. Something that is visibly drawing attention to that accomplishment for the classroom. And I say that, and I also want to just put a little caveat, because sometimes we might have kids out for a medical reason, for a family hardship, because there's the flu going around. And so what we don't want to get into is, classrooms all up and down the wing are getting this celebration, but one student is keeping a classroom from a celebration. So all of this is going to really, you have to use your human judgment, right? And your teacher hearts to remember that some of this is outside the locus of control of our kids. And you don't want to set up a situation where it's a real downer and is exempting someone from feeling like they belong because there's a attendance issue that's outside of their control. So I love this idea, and be careful and make sure that you set up your criteria so that all classrooms can be eligible. But that can take different forms, this idea of an attendance hero, especially for a student who might have had a hardship or attendance was really putting them at risk. They've had a week maybe where they attended all 5 days. We're giving them some kind of messaging, that attendance hero that they can take home and share. And it goes on the fridge, and parents are seeing this matters to my child, and the school recognized it, and maybe to earn it again the next week or something like that. But all kinds of fun ways to do this too, where maybe a little pajama party. And then don't underestimate the value of posting your percentages. I can't tell you how many schools that are doing this now. You walk in the door and you're seeing the percentages. And if you have a goal, and you see the post, you can say, "Oh, they're almost there." Right? You can feel it and want to contribute to reaching that goal. So something to think about. If you did have a day where you were above your goal, I have had a school rolled out the popcorn maker middle of the day and popped popcorn because they met their attendance goal, right? So you can have all kinds of fun. Again, it's really about communicating that message of, we need you here, we want you here, this is where you belong, and when you're not here, we miss you.
And I like how you're also stating the importance, or there's been a bit of a shift, and now really thinking about non-material incentives. Again, what is an item that doesn't have to be a trinket, but a recognition, an announcement, a certificate.
Right. Yeah. Now, what I'm going to share with you next is a logic model for PBIS, but ignore the PBIS and just look at it as an acknowledgement or a logic model. In in this modeling, you can see that this outside circle here is our outcomes. This is why we do what we do in schools with staff for kids every day. We want to set up our organizations for important outcomes that your community values. And this might look different region to region, school to school within the state. So this is not a one size fits all. It is a way to organize around your data in your systems and your practices to reach your outcomes. And so what I'd like to do is to share with you what looks pretty abstract and to bring it a little bit more concrete with an attendance example. Now this looks messy, so I'm going to explain it. This is like a working messy draft. This is where, you know, good things, good ideas get poured out. For the outcomes, this outer circle, this idea of we want to increase attendance, right? We want to increase the number of students attending every day. We want to move the bar there. That was the outcome that this school team was focusing on. In order to find present levels, they looked at their average daily attendance, which was a 92.62. So that was the average daily attendance for their school. They also wanted to decrease chronic absence from 21.4% to 16.05%. And I don't remember exactly the rationale for those number shifts, but that was their goal, to increase ADA and to decrease chronic absenteeism. Because of the, you know, if we did our data dives and our root cause analysis, remember it's varied, it's nuanced, it takes some data mining. So we focused on tier 1, and we worked as a team to say, what can we do at the universal level for everyone everywhere? Things that might support this movement. So these are evidence-based practices, right? They wanted to add an acknowledgement system that included random surprises for being here, right? So rolling out the popcorn machine. It's putting the banner outside of a door when a classroom had 100% attendance. So they brainstormed these random surprises. They also added the big bulletin board that would draw everyone's attention coming through the door so they could get a sense of, where are we and what's my job in relationship to supporting these percentages? They also had a monthly assembly where they recognized students. They added in an award that we're glad you're here, monthly superstar. And they did it that way instead of perfect attendance because they really wanted to emphasize improved attendance and not necessarily perfect attendance. And then they added in a protocol where if a student missed 2 consecutive days of school, their teacher would call. And so this teacher call was designed to be a phone call of support and not a phone call of, you need to report your absence, right? It wasn't like a reprimand. It was, hey, noticed so-and-so isn't here. Is everything okay? A reach out by a personal connection with the school. And I know that you all know, those of you that are in our schools, that if a student is reaching a certain number of missed days, that it generates a letter, right? Of, hey, your child has missed so many days. And that can sometimes not feel so great to have that letter come in your mailbox. Now, I understand the reason for it, and the notification certainly belongs as part of the system. But this team also talked about if you had a student who was chronically absent or at risk for, and then attendance approved, sending a letter to say, we noticed they're getting here. Thanks for your effort.
Yeah.
Right.
The follow-up.
So
Yeah.
some kind of practice that helped to balance out the positive with the negative messaging. So now in PBIS, I'm going to go back here, right? Because we're talking about the data. Where are we now? What's our goal? What I just went over are those practices. What are we going to do about that data to get to those outcomes? We can't forget about the systems that are needed to support these practices. Because it's one thing in a meeting to drop all of these great brainstorms. It's a whole other thing to implement those ideas. So what you're going to notice, oops, in that pink circle, and maybe you won't notice because it's quite the mess, is who's going to be doing what, right? Who is going to be updating the bulletin boards every day? Whose job is that? And do we need to delegate it? Is this going to be a rotating expectation? The grade level teachers were tasked with identifying the attendance awards. And so they gave some actionable responsibilities, who was going to do it, and a by when. That's your action plan. So that's the logic model, right? Is to get to your outcomes, you need to know what your data is, you need to identify evidence-based practices, and then you need those systems of support to implement those practices. You remove one of those circles, the whole thing can collapse. So now this is a PBIS logic model. You look at your own structures for implementing what you're doing and think about how you can divvy your efforts between systems, data, practices. I did want to show, and I want to be sensitive to time. I think I'm going to go forward and then go backwards because this is what I was wondering if this looks familiar to you, Sarah. Yeah, when we talk about partnering with families, how can we get them thinking about ways to make their lives easier? The night before, is the backpack packed? Do they know what they're wearing? Right? Thinking about your launch pad is a term that I've seen recently, right? Where the bag's by the door, the shoes are right there. There is some kind of a routine established for bedtimes. And we do sometimes workshop with schools to think about a matrix for home where that might be part of it. In your morning routine, do you have an alarm? How are you getting up? What's happening for breakfast? Is this before? Is this at home? Are you grabbing something to go? Are you getting breakfast at school? So all of these things that we can kind of talk through or put it on a magnet, something that parents can stick on the fridge to help promote these practices. There's some prompts here too that I wanted to just put in to check in on. When you think about the students you serve and their families, what are the current messages these families are getting right now about attendance? Because I'm wondering, is the only messaging that families are getting is the letter in the mail when their student is when their child is missing? And how can we flip that around? And in that way, how are we communicating support before concern? Right? And what would make attendance easier for families? I'm thinking about that family with the 5 boys, right? How can we think about problem solving some of those barriers?
So Courtney, in our chat, somebody dropped in, what a great idea. You know, when you go to Walmart or Hannaford, there might be a parking spot specifically for new families, or something like that. What a great opportunity for the school to have a specific designated parking spot for somebody who, it might be a maternity parking spot, something like that. Just to, again, it keeps coming back to humanizing the challenges, and we're all facing them. And how can we shift the climate so that it is not a punitive approach, but it is a supportive way of looking at solving these challenges. one of the things you were talking about, Courtney, is the messaging piece. And I would welcome people to go back and think about those of you that have been able to be with us for all of our sessions. We had the opportunity to meet with Rebecca Honig, who is from Parent Powered. And we really focused on that consistent, growth-focused, positive attendance messaging. Again, count me in. Wow, what a dynamic resource for really thinking about how are we communicating with our families. And what we find, we know the research shows us that when we have families on board and their needs are being met, then our attendance significantly is impacted. So we are at 4:28 right now, and I'm trying to be super mindful of the time frame. Courtney, do you have other quick things you'd like to? Okay.
I have put a link to the slides in the chat. There are a couple of other resources that I had added to slides in case I, over prepared, how that goes. So they're in there if you just want to just take a peek at some of the things I had added. I think I'd like to end with an intentional closing. So let me share. So this is it's actually an evidence-based classroom management protocol. And it is referred to as WOW. And WOW stands for welcoming students at the door, right? It's owning your environment by establishing and teaching routines. And you can think of this school-wide, but you can also think about this class-wide. And then you end with an intentional wrapping up, some kind of a ritual of either, reflective moment where you're saying, did we meet our goals today? Maybe you have students fill out an exit ticket. Maybe there's some kind of process observer for the classroom that says, how did today go? Did we have any successes? Is there anything we want to work on for tomorrow? Any reminders that we need? Something that just sets this like rhythm and tone that says, we're a group, we're a team, we're all in this together, and it matters how you experienced your day. So some kind of intentional closing, which I think we probably have a minute to do now at this point. I did, if you click on the slides, the very last slide is my email. So if there's anything that you want me to expand upon or send resources for, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. But with where we're at time, I just wanted to say, first, thank you for the invite for coming on today. And then thank you for showing up and sharing all of your great ideas in the chat and with the group today.
Courtney, I cannot thank you enough for your willingness to come in and share. You have such a historical perspective of the PBIS framework. But again, I don't want people to get caught up in that, because you are able today to share, again, a buffet of options that whether you're a PBIS school, whether you're a bar school, whether you're a lone wolf in your school, these are things that you could implement that really bring to focus the importance of that positive recognition as a tool for motivation and engagement in schools. So with that, I thank you so much. Thank you all for joining. There will be an email going out that will try to capture everything that we've talked about today. And I would invite you to think about joining us April 16th for March 19th. I'm already a month ahead of myself. March 19th is our next set office hours, and we'll be meeting with Leslie Monroy from Mono and Mono, and she'll be talking with us about again, engaging families through proactive, supportive outreach. Don't wait for things to fall apart, but do it proactively. And she has many success stories she'd like to share with us. So that will be on the 19th of March, and I'll send a reminder out for that as well. So thank you guys. I so appreciate your time and your engagement. Look on the MEAC webpage, but an email will be coming through pointing you in that direction. Oh, one last customer service plug. Sign up for the Count Me In e-newsletter if you have not yet. That's going to be in your letter when it comes out. But a reminder, it's an incredible resource that kind of wraps this all together. So have a great evening, folks. Enjoy some sunshine, and I will see you later.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
How'd that stop? How'd that feel?
Yeah, I think it was okay.